Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. I had a request to do a video on the attack bonus for cliffs, and I realized I have no idea how that works. So I tried to do some research out of my own interest, but it sounds like other people are confused too, and go back and forth between saying there's no bonus if you're on the same elevation, and others saying it's complicated, but without going into specifics. So I thought, let's get to the bottom of this. Does firing over a cliff count as firing downhill, and how does the hill attack bonus work anyway? Let's have a look at the regular hill bonuses, and I'll explain how I'm doing the test. First, I changed a couple of archers so that they would do 100 attack to each other. They have 4 pierce armor and 6 regular attack, plus 4 at the blacksmith, so I had to add another 94. I also gave them 1,000 health points, and this is all done through triggers. If we can establish that they do 100 damage to each other on equal ground, it should be really easy to see not only are they doing more damage, but actually what percent extra damage it is. As we can see, they're evenly matched, doing 100 damage to each other and die at the same time. Now we're going to raise the elevation below one of the archers, leaving everything the same, so that one is now firing downhill and the other is firing uphill. The archer that's on the top of the hill is actually taking less damage. It's taking 75 damage as opposed to 100, while the one downhill is taking 125 damage. This clearly shows that attacking downhill gives you a 25% boost, and firing uphill gives you a 25% reduction in damage. That means the archer uphill has 56% more damage output than the one downhill. Pretty potent stuff. This is only an elevation difference of 1 though, so what happens if we increase that elevation? Is it going to stack? Well, it actually doesn't. It doesn't matter how much the elevation change is, as long as there's an elevation change there at all. Raising the elevation as high as it'll go still gives the same effect of a 25% bonus attacking downhill and a 25% penalty, we could say, firing uphill. So now we're going to reset everything and we're going to try it with towers to see if we get the same thing. Again, I've set it here so they both have nice numbers for their health and they are doing 100 damage to each other. Now I raise the tower onto a hill and again we see the exact same effect of where the tower is taking 25% less damage and the tower is doing 25% more damage. Now we try again just to be very thorough and make sure that nothing funny is happening here. We raise the unit on top of an elevation and again we see the exact same effect. The unit is now doing 25% more damage to the building and the building is doing 25% less damage to the unit. Bear in mind that all the stats have been completely changed here, so it's not like one longbowman on a hill is going to almost destroy a tower. What we notice though is that the archer did much more damage when it was up on the hill than when it was at the bottom of the hill, even more than we might intuitively expect. Now we're going to try it with a castle. So here the castle on even ground does exactly 20 damage to the house. Up on top of the hill something kind of weird's happening and the building seems to take damage twice. Interestingly, it doesn't seem to be a really clear-cut 25% bonus. It seems to be doing about 21 damage on average. That's a strange number and I think it has something to do with the fact that the castle's firing 4 arrows and all of those are being affected by the building armor of the house. Still, the number 21 seems a little strange there, as if there's 4 arrows and it normally does 20 damage, we would think maybe it adds 1 attack for each of those arrows or something, which we would expect then plus 4. Having the castle firing uphill, we see a similar effect where it only does 19 damage to the house instead of 20. Again, that's not 25%, and even if each of the arrows is being affected by 1 damage, the change should be a multiple of the number of arrows that we have. Kind of a weird result, but since we're actually after info about cliffs in this video, I thought it wasn't really worth the time to sit and investigate this weird phenomenon. You're still getting a bonus by having the castle up on top of a hill, and we all know it takes less damage from trebuchets when it's up on a hill. So you should still be building those castles up on the hill, even if we don't know exactly what the formula is for how it's doing damage downhill. Okay, so now just to be thorough, let's also confirm that this works for melee units. Here I've adjusted 2 champions so that they have 1,000 health points and do 100 damage to each other, as we can see. I guess one attacked first, and that's why it won. Both of them were the Japanese. Okay, so now we'll try them up on top of a hill, and as we can see, the one that's uphill, you get the exact same bonus. It's taking 25% less damage up on top of the hill, and it's doing 25% more to the unit below it. Okay, reset everything, and back to longbowmen that are doing 100 damage to each other. Now let's try what happens if they have a cliff in between. Well, as we can see, the one on top is still taking 100 damage, so it doesn't do anything, right? Wrong. If we look at the one on the bottom, it's taking 125 damage. Okay, so what does that mean? That means if you're on what looks like the top of the cliff, but you're still on the same elevation, you do 25% more damage to the unit on the other side, but they don't get that penalty of 25% less damage to you. You still get that attack advantage, but you don't have the defensive one, so it's not as good as being on a hill. Okay, so what happens if you're on a hill and you have a cliff? Well, it turns out the cliff doesn't actually do anything in this situation. You get the defensive bonus of being on the cliff, taking 25% less, and you just do the regular 25% attack to the unit below. It's the exact same as if there wasn't a cliff there at all. Okay, but what if you're behind a cliff but you're firing uphill? Well, this one's kind of weird. They actually take the 125 damage, so they still take the 25% damage even though they're on a hill. The cliff seems to counteract that effect in this case. You get the full attack bonus from the cliff, and their hill bonus is nullified completely. You, on the other hand, being downhill from the other archer and the cliff not giving you any defensive bonus, still take the full 25% extra damage being down there. Basically, the archers are evenly matched and both having an attack bonus against each other of 25%. Kind of a weird situation. But that's really good to know about. In a game, if you're downhill and they have the high ground, if you can, get behind a cliff. And it's just like you guys were on flat ground again, although bear in mind you're also doing more damage than you would have on flat ground. 25% more to be exact. Some weird thing happened on this one where he had 125 health left, and that last arrow came in and hit him, and it only did 100 damage on the last attack. I have no idea, but that actually happened a couple times when I was filming this. I'm not totally sure what's going on there. I think the paradox of somehow being on the other edge of a cliff to somebody while they're also higher than you confused the game and just kind of broke it. Okay, so now looking at the next one, what if you're both behind a cliff? Is it just firing over a cliff gives you an extra 25% damage? Well, no, and this is really cool. I was really impressed by this. The game actually figures out, well, you're both behind a cliff, but you're actually on the same level, so to speak. So they're on the same elevation, and they're both behind a cliff, so it actually cancels out their attack bonuses for each other, and they just do the regular 100 damage. That's really good programming. Okay, so we know that the elevation doesn't stack, but what about the cliffs? What if we have two cliffs? Well, it does the same thing as it normally does. You do 25% more damage firing down, and you take the same damage being on the top. Makes sense, since that's what happened with the hills as well. Okay, now let's check out towers again. First of all, we reset it so that they're doing 100 damage to each other, and then I add in the cliff, and we see what happens. Same result, 25% extra damage downhill, and you take the same damage being up on top of the cliff. Doesn't seem to be a difference between buildings and units. Repeat the same thing with the castle. Set it so it's doing 20 damage on the ground, and now when we put in a cliff, we get that exact same 21 happening. I didn't test it, but it seems very consistent so far, and I'm sure that you don't get a defensive bonus for having a castle behind a cliff. Just to be thorough, I thought I would also test the idea of whether the range increases on a hill or behind a cliff. So here you notice the road, you notice the archer just barely steps onto the road, so he just has 2 feet on the road. Now I raised the elevation up, and if the elevation gave a longer range to the archer, we would expect that he could fire before he even reaches the road. That's not what we observe. He still stands at the same place. It might look a little bit further away, but it's just the ground has been shifted up. He's really standing in the same spot. Also, if I have the elevation and I add the cliff, the same thing. He's standing in the same spot. I haven't moved that road, I just lifted up the elevation. And just because I'm a thorough guy, I also tried just the cliff by itself. Same thing, the archer stands in the exact same place, he just barely gets to that road and is firing from the exact same place regardless of how I manipulate the elevation and the cliffs. It doesn't look like it does anything to the range. So, in summary, firing over cliffs gives you an attack bonus but not a defense bonus. Hills give you an attack and defense bonus. All of these bonuses are 25%. There is no stacking with hills and cliffs, and there's nothing funny that seems to be happening with towers and castles and range. Just before I finish up this video, I also realized there's probably one more thing that I haven't looked at that I probably should, and that's whether being up on a hill increases line of sight. As you can see from this video, increasing the elevation does not affect the line of sight at all. That's too bad, that actually would have been a cool feature, but that's the way it is. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope I didn't tell you too much stuff that you already knew, and I hope that you found something interesting in that video. I guess the moral of the story is to be aware of your surroundings and to use them to your advantage. Let me know what you liked and what you didn't, and I'll see you next time.